and some of them you can't even touch. The librarian brings them out with white gloves. It's a very useful way to take control of your publishing and writing. I think I was like, I should have been making zines this whole time, but here we are. My name is Ty Williams. I am born and bred Columbus, Ohio, not native, any. I am a poet. I'd say writing is my first discipline, but I do a lot of other things, including zine making. I use zine making in my poetry practice, and I use it for to self-publish poetry and also as like promotional tools. I think I've always been zine adjacent. I grew up in my formative years were 80s and early 90s, when that was another resurgence of zine culture with punk rock and the Riot Girl movement and that sort of thing. I didn't make zines back then, but I always did like paper collage and stuff, and I used to make mixtapes and do the full tape insert. And so I was like paper crafting around that time, but I wasn't making like proper zines. So flash forward to when I started college in my late 40s, and in my last semester, I took an English class that was current topics in English, punk, Riot Girl, and black metal. And one of the coolest classes I've ever had. And one of the assignments was to make a zine. So I made a zine, actually have one with me, Demonica Worldwide, and it's a flip zine. So this side was African metal, and then you flip it over, and this was indigenous metal. And so after doing a deep dive into zines in that class, we went to the Thompson Library and looked at their zine collection, which was so amazing. They have original zines from queer zines from the 70s and 80s, and Riot Girl zines, and sci-fi fanzines from 50s and 60s. And some of them you can't even touch. The librarian brings them out with white gloves and sets them down. These are like real, like super cool artifacts of the time. So I made the zine, and it came out really well. I was impressed with it. I got an A on the project, and I thought, this is the thing I can do. I guess I'm making zines now. So I just went crazy with it, and I started making zines, a lot of them centered around poetry. So this is I call it a chap zine. So it's a little chapbook zine. Some of it is very cut and paste, punk style zine, and some of it is like computer maze. And so that's how I got into it. I think I was like, I should have been making zines this whole time, but here we are. Zines are a great way to do some sort of visual presentation with your poetry, as well as the words. And you get to totally control that. You don't hand it over to a publisher or anything else. You get to control it. And, you own the copyright to your work, so you can publish it however you want, even if it's published in a traditional publishing format. For example, I have a series of zines that are just one poem each, like this one, Make Poets Dangerous Again. This poem has been published. I have a video on YouTube of this poem, but this is another method of getting this poem out into people's hands, and it's a visual. And I have their pictures, so you can see who these poets are. And on the back is my contact information. So this is a one-poem zine, but it's also like a calling card. It's an example of my work. It's a visual project as well. So this little tiny zine does a whole lot of things. Now, when I do events and I'm tabling for my poetry or zine work, I'm selling this for $2 a pop, and I don't make a ton of money off. I make the money back for the supplies probably, but more importantly, I get to choose whether I sell this or whether I give it to somebody as a calling card, or whether I go to a poetry event and I stick this, put this around the room, leave it around the room, or if I go to a bookstore and I stick it between books in the poetry section and promote myself. There are a million things that you can do with this thing. And so that's what I would say that why these zines are advantageous to poets. And then I have like these little collections. I have this series called Franchement in French. That means like frankly, obviously. So I have these poetry collections that are in zine format. I completely publish these myself, and they're inexpensively photocopied, and I sell these for $5 a pop. Again, this can also be a calling card. This has my information on there. They can contact me. They can see where my work is. It's a very useful way to take control of your publishing and writing. Obviously, a lot of people want to do a more broad marketing, and that doesn't replace that, or zine work does not replace that. But this is a way for you to do it yourself and promote yourself, put your work out there without anyone having their nose in your business, basically.